Good afternoon, dear viewers. As always, I'm Alexander Sudarev, and in this video we will tell you about what capacities the Sovelmash testing area has as of March 2021. Let's start to get to the bottom of it. There are two chillers behind me. These are cooling complexes that are designed to cool the equipment connected to it. This chiller is designed to cool the load machine system located in the Sovelmash testing lab. The same chiller is also designed for cooling the large laser unit, which is in fact a complex of units. This is an ytterbium fiber laser and a large enclosed laser table. What is important to mention here? First of all, quite a lot of convenient solutions are used in this complex, in particular a built-in computer with software that allows the operator of the laser unit to load all the necessary materials and proceed directly to work. Protective screens, the operating field itself, there is lighting, and an air purification and filtration system. But we will talk about air filtration and purification system a little later when we get to it. And there is also an oxygen sensor. It shows the percentage of oxygen in the atmosphere, and it also helps to keep the laser operator and other employees who are in the room safe. Let's move on to the next laser unit. This laser unit is called small by our specialists, because it really has the smallest dimensions of everything presented here, and it is required for engraving. In other words, the creation of modern nameplates, engravings of any other parts that are made by our specialists, as well as parts that have already been purchased ready-made, are carried out here. This unit ensures doing all of this. It's used quite often, is very helpful and absolutely indispensable for our needs. Let's move on. Here is another workstation which is usually used for checking, preparing drawings in order to start processing them and launch this or that laser unit. Here you can see two computers. Actually, there is only one system unit, and this is actually the small laser we talked about earlier. I forgot to mention that. Let's move on. Here we have, if I may say so, the medium-sized laser unit. It is designed for cutting non-metal materials, and it is, as a rule, used to make the necessary tooling from plexiglass, plywood, and other things. And one of the main applications is cutting the slot insulation to fit it further into the motor grooves, as well as for winding the motor itself. There is also quite a large number of cabinets, workbenches, and so on in the room. All this is necessary to store the materials, tools, and so on. It's all arranged quite space-savingly, conveniently, and each employee knows where their area of responsibility is, their tools, and what they're going to do the next moment. It's really convenient in terms of organizing the workflow. This is a system for storing materials that will be used to perform cutting of the laser equipment. It's an important unit which is quite often used by the specialists. And the most interesting thing is some kind of impromptu exhibition with the samples of electric motors that have already been created, modernized, or developed by the Sovelmash specialists. There is plenty to see too. Now we're back to the laser unit, or rather one of its parts. We haven't mentioned the insulating paper, the insulating material that is actually cut on the medium-sized laser. But let's move on. First, it's worth noting that we are under a sealing shelf, specially designed by our specialists. It is made for storing bulky goods, tools, prototype motor models, and so on. In other words, it is really a very convenient and multifunctional unit or space, if I can put it this way. Here you can see a compressor that reaches a pressure of about 6 atmospheres. It also has a built-in receiver, takes air from the atmosphere, runs it through the filters, and then gives out compressed air. After the compressed air is generated by this compressor, it enters this large receiver through a system of pipes. It is worth noting that this receiver also stores compressed air with a pressure of up to 6 atmospheres on average and is significantly larger in size than its counterparts. Because air from this receiver also goes through the distribution system to different sections, i.e. to the testing area, the casting shop, the winding shop, and so on. In other words, it is applied to all the areas adjacent to the testing area. In addition, after this receiver, the compressed air having passed through a system of pipes with fine filters designed to remove the residues of oil, products of work, compressor wear, and so on, enters the nitrogen generator. The nitrogen generator is a unit which, as many of you have already noticed, is designed to generate nitrogen. There is about 70% of nitrogen in the air, and by pumping it through a system of bulbs, small membrane filters, the nitrogen is actually extracted, and virtually pure nitrogen also goes to the next receiver, this one, through a distribution system. And here it is also stored under a pressure of about 6 atmospheres. A question may arise though, what for this receiver is needed? This receiver serves one very important task. It is a complex of the nitrogen station, if I may say so, and it plays a role of purging. This is exactly what you need for the nitrogen generator to perform its main task, generating nitrogen. Next, you can also observe the distribution system and the movement of compressed air and nitrogen. Everything is marked, the specialists know what each valve is responsible for, and the ways in which the units can be switched to supply either nitrogen or compressed air to the required workstations. There is something worth mentioning about nitrogen. Nitrogen is used in most cases to operate the large laser unit. Depending on the metal that is being cut, one of the gases must be fed. In our case, it is either compressed air or nitrogen, but in addition to the gas itself, it is necessary to comply with certain conditions regarding the pressure to be applied. In order to perform cutting under the high pressure of more than 6 atmospheres, we have additionally installed this device, the so-called booster, which increases the incoming pressure due to a membrane system and its design in such a way that it can be increased fourfold. Thus, after passing through the booster, which also has its own receiver, though a rather small volume one, the gas is fed and accumulated in this large receiver, which is designed for a pressure of about 16 atmospheres. As a rule, we use a bit lower pressure, but still, the following facts are interesting. First of all, there is also a filter, which is designed to clean the residual oil and other possible fractions. And this receiver can be filled with both nitrogen and compressed air, which means that in fact either compressed air or nitrogen is fed to the booster. Everything depends on what is needed to operate the laser unit. Next, behind me you can see the air filtration and purification system, which actually purifies the air inside the enclosed work table of the large laser unit and consequently filters through all the combustion and decomposition products, etc. And thus, as the outlet, it is released into the atmosphere already purified, and as a result, there are no fumes or smog in the room. The oxygen sensor shows the required oxygen level in the atmosphere, and all the employees are able to work and perform their duties. Let's move on. In this room, there is also a cabinet for storing combustible materials. which actually provides all the necessary conditions for compliance with safety regulations when working with combustible materials. This is the electromechanical guillotine, which is used by the specialists from time to time. You can also see the unit for testing and measuring the performance of car generators, and so on. Basically, there is a lot of equipment in the testing area. As many of you know, we lease these premises at the moment, and we have to use what we have, shall we say, to make the best of it. I mean, we would like to have more space, more room, and I think that in our future design and engineering technology department that is currently being constructed in the territory of Technopolis Moscow on the Labushevo site, we will have the opportunity to expand more. Because the work on developing, creating and elaborating the automated production of electric motors, of course, involves much more processes that we can implement on the given premises. But as of March 2021, the testing area looks like this. So in our next videos, we will try to tell you what some of our other areas look like as well. If this video has been interesting for you, make sure to write comments, questions, hit the like button and subscribe to the videos. See you again, dear viewers.